Hello, friends. I'm Dr. Puja Kapoor, consultant pediatric neurologist, Paras Hospital, Gurgaon, director and co founder, Continua Kids. So, the topic of today's discussion is how to the activities which are helpful to make or to get the maximum developmental, to reach the maximum developmental potential of a newborn. So, today I'm going to cover down from 0 to 3 months what all activities you should do with your child to get the maximum potential of him. Okay, so to start with, let us first find out what happens to the brain just after birth and how these activities are correlated with the maximum potential output. So as a newborn is born, so approximately we have billions of neurons in the brain, 100 billion, approximately 100 billion of neurons are there. And each neuron has a small stem like thing which connects with the next neuron, and this connection is called as synapse. The more the number of neurons connect with another neuron, the better the cognition would be. If one neuron connects with 100 neurons, then the child, that means my one information from one neuron is distributed to 100 other neurons. And so all there is a big jumble bumble of the neurons attachment from one to another to another to another, and a child is born with that jumble bumble and with that connections at birth. Then happens what you called as pruning and blooming. So, all those who have a bit of knowledge about plants, that we do cutting of the plants to get them more bushier, to get them more bloom later on. So, that is what you called as pruning. That means cutting. So, what happens is that once a child is born, in a newborn phase, there's a lot of synapse. That means a lot of connections between various neurons, and depending upon what our environmental factors are or what is written there in the genetics, pruning happens. Means that the connections between various neurons at different point of time in the life gets disconnected, and the responsible that which neuron would be cut from the other neuron and which synapse would be continued to the other one is dependent on as to what my environmental factors are. Suppose I give certain stimulations to the brain which are required for the development of particular neurons. So, in that place, blooming will happen and no pruning will happen. Whereas, if there are no stimulation to that neuron, so that over that neuron, pruning will happen. That means cutting on will happen. So, as the child grows, a brain grows through a lot of pruning and a lot of blooming. So, all the places where a lot of stimulation is giving, blooming happens. Whereas if the neurons are not required or if the stimulation does not happen, there pruning happens. And it is labeled that in a lot of our children with autism spectrum disorder, a lot of pruning happens in all the spheres which are helpful in our social and communication milestones. And because of these prunings of these neurons, we lag in our children who have got diagnosed with autism, lag in the social and communication domain. And this all starts happening as soon as the child is born. And that is why the first few years of life, that means the 1,000 days after birth, are very, very, very important. So, and that is why this episode of today, that what you should do with your child so that you can have uh, the maximum potential reached. Also, it is important to know that our brain does a lot of pruning necessarily also, because if the pruning will not happen, that means cutting of the extra connection will not happen, then the child will get all jumbled up, because there would be so many connections that he may get jumbled up and may not, again, may result into some learning disability or hyperactivity or so on and so forth. Different types of disorders could also happen if our brain does not do very respective pruning or cutting, because at the later stages we formed a very refined brain. If I am a doctor, so a certain neurons of mine would be very much active, because those are the one which helps me to recall the different medication names or recall the different diseases name. So because I've been using them again and again, obviously they are more strengthened, they are more strong, and all those neurons which I haven't used of would have got pruned up, because those are, for me, those are unnecessary. Okay, so let's go back to that. How are we going to stimulate the excitatory things, my neurons, so that my I develop in a better way? So if I will not use certain stimulations, some neurons will go off and pruning will happen and they will die off, and those systems or those neurons will be cut off from the brain forever in the life. And so to stimulate, let us start with the vision. As a newborn, the child, once it's born, he or she is basically technically blind. There is no vision as such, it's all hazy. So as we grow older, in next 15 days, 20 days, a month, or first 60 days, the vision starts happening on the retina and then to the brain, and formation of the object starts happening. So, first of all, in the first 2 months of life, the child starts focusing, and that's what we called as fixation. And the fixation first happens on the faces. So if you will bring if you will bring your face to the child, near to the eyes, near to the face of the child would start looking at you. And once the child starts looking, that is what you called as fixation. You slowly move your head towards one side, and you will see that the child eyes will follow you. Then slowly you can move to other side, and you will see that the child has started following you, and this is what you called as following. So first, fixation happens, looking fixated towards one's face, and then after that, if you will move that face slowly, the following will happen. So that in that way, I am strengthening my neurons which have a connectivity from the eyeball, from the retina to that part of the brain where my picture, the final picture of whatever we are seeing, is put on. So that is why you have to start doing this as early as possible, because that is going to enhance these neurons. And next comes, after the face, what all the child starts fixing on, what is very interesting is black and white, very sharp images. Okay, so the color black and white contrast, that's the maximum contrast you can have. So you can draw those pictures, or you google out black and white contrast images. Those should be very sharp, and those should not be hazy. And then what you do is, like, you put that picture, and then you can slowly move from one side to another, and the child would enjoy that. Also, what you can do is, like, you can get a brain gym. Brain gym is very, very important for the development of the child. So what is brain gym? Brain gym is nothing. You must have seen a lot of loops, and on that there are different toys which are hanging. So what happens, because the child could now fixate, the child would try to reach to that object, and that is what you called as brain gym. So to start with, you can start with your face, and then on a brain gym you can put those black and white sharp images. So the child starts focusing there. So, you are stimulating one sense organ of the child, that is the vision. And that is very, very, very important. Now, next comes to tummy time. A lot of your doctors must have told you that after feeding, after, you should give some tummy time to the child. What do you mean by tummy time is making the child lie on the tummy. So there are so much benefits of making the child lie on the tummy. First of all, because once the child sucks in, it also sucks in a lot of air along with the feed. And as soon as the air goes in, there's a lot of bloating feeling. So the child cries because of the colic and all. So as you make the child lie prone or on his tummy, because of his weight, excess gas will come out and the child will feel relaxed. Also, the child, once you make the child go on the tummy, and you put something very interesting, maybe you may call or you may put your face towards the child face, and then slowly lift up your face, the child would try to look towards you. And that will helps in these muscles, because the child head is like this, and slowly, if you are there, the child would try to look up whatever is happening, and slowly these muscles will strengthen. And this is what you called as the head muscles or the neck muscles, basically. And the strengthening of these muscles will help to stabilize the neck holding of the child. So once the child, you tries to put up the head in a lying position, which is like on his tummy, so that will helps in the strengthening of the muscles. And slowly, as the child advances 3+ month age, the child would try to lift up along with the head the shoulder also. So slowly the child would try to, apart from the head, the child would try to lift up the shoulder, and that would helps to strengthen up all these muscles. And that is the thing for tummy time. You can also have the tummy time not even on the floor, you can also have it on your lap. You can take the child on your hand and put it on the tummy towards it, and then you can also just sway slowly. So that is what you have stimulated the vestibular part of it, and that also helps in the connection. In the olden days, people used to put bangles around the arms, all black and white, the golden and the black beads around the wrist of the child, because black and golden color attracts the child. So we put these beads, and that has been related to the religious thing ki nazar nahi lagegi, and that is to omit out any bad omen. But because the child would look into like this towards that, and that is what the functionality of try to fixate the child and to grab the attention. Also, we would put certain noise making small ghungroos, which you called, on the wrist. So as the child moves the wrist, that will make certain noises, and once you have the noise, the child would again try to look into that picture, or to try to look into that whatever is happening to the hand. And that is again helps in the strengthening of the vision and also hand eye coordination. Okay. What happens is, by the age of 3 months, mouthing starts happening. What do you mean by mouthing? The child would bring the thumb towards the mouth so that he could suckle that thumb inside. And that is the prerequisites for reaching towards the thing. So once the mouthing happens, you will try to reach for the things. And because of that, in the brain gym, what you can do is, in the brain gym, you can put up toys which have certain light and also have certain some noise or certain sound making quality. So because of that sound making quality, the child will look up towards that toy and would try to reach towards that object. And because the light also is there, so you are stimulating two sense organs. One is the vision towards the fixation, and that object would obviously make some noise or sound, and for that the child is attracted. And thirdly, because the child will reach out for that, so that means you are strengthening the muscles also for to reaching out. So these are very much essential again for the development of the child. Now, in the olden days, what we used to do was we used to put on certain strings around the arm, upper arm. We used to put up certain strings कि नजर नहीं लगे. कुछ बैंड्स जो हैं वो हम यहाँ बच्चों को पहनाते हैं ताकि नजर नहीं लगे. But the whole sole objective of that in science is that because as the child grows, the arm the arm circumference increases, and as the arm circumference increases, those become tighter. But that is an indicator that my child is growing well nutritionally. you know so that is why in the olden days wo tabis bandte the yahan pe. We used to put out various strings around the upper arm, and but that tells us about ki my child is growing nutritionally also. And as the strings become very tight in a month or so, that we know, okay, that my child is growing and we need to replace it. So those were the things by which we used to have the nutritional status. We should know about the nutritional status of the child. Also, that could also be easily achieved by the weight gain, but that is a very very good parameter. That means the upper arm circumference is a much better parameters to find out that my child is growing very well nutritionally. So that aspect also you have to make sure, and that is why I'm not going to talk about a lot of nutrition today. I just touched upon that nutrition also is very important in the development of the milestones, because if your body is not healthy, your mind cannot be healthy, and the brain growth cannot happen at a pace which is required. Now, uh, next, coming to what other exercises should be done to make my child more and more brighter and brighter. So we have done about the vision part of it. We have talked about the hearing part of it. We also have talked about putting and stimulating by putting the things, beads, colored beads, or specifically black and white beads on my wrist. Now we talk about the vestibular aspect. If you could recall that in the olden days, what we used to do was that we used to make the child do lori. We used to sing the child some songs, and in the meanwhile, we used to tap the child. We'll keep it on our shoulder, and we would sing the song, and also we will move a bit our body. We will move a bit in a slow motion to make our child go to sleep. There's a purpose to that. By putting the child on my uh, shoulder, I'm giving the tactile touch, and by singing a lori, I am giving a soft auditory stimulus. Also, by slowly moving my body, I am giving the vestibular stimulus. In olden days, we used to make hammocks for the child by tying a cloth or a bed sheet between the two chairs, and slowly we used to sing and move that hammock. So, in that hammock, the child was very much closely put in. So, that was again the tactile stimulus which we were giving, a very strong protection. Slowly, that hammock was moving, and also we were singing. So, again, this is a very stimulatory thing to happen, and that has taken place now by cribs, that the small crib which we use and do the same thing. So you could put in that way or you could put in with it, but the purpose should be very much clear that we have to do these activities so that a connect is established, and these connections henceforth develop the other neurons which are taking that stimulus to different parts of the brain. Okay, so these activities have to be there so that my child develops. And one activity which has to be totally prohibited is screen time. By screen time, what you do is that you are just putting the child for a visual stimulus and an auditory stimulus. Apart from that, because the child will see that screen and the screen will just change down within seconds, and also there is a connect by the auditory thing. But what happens is there is no disruption in between. The child gets fixated, and there is a fixation. Because of fixation, the image what is there will get fixated to the brain, and the child does not know the purpose of that, and that is uninterrupted. So for 15 minutes the child will see that sequence of changes in the brain of the visual, and there would be a sound, but he does not know how to use, what to use, when to use. He will just have a memory of that, and that memory is totally useless because that have no context to it. Whereas what we are doing, we are stimulating, but we don't stimulate for hours together in the same pose. And there are various interruptions. Make sure that once you should talk to your child. Suppose I'm talking to the child for a 2 month old, and I'm talking to hello. So I'm setting up a visual stimulation of my face, which has various other changes of my eyes, my blink, my mouth face is changing. I'm reaching out to the child, I'm touching the child, and also I am, after saying hello, I am looking towards the eyes of the child to have a connectivity, and then I will wait for the child to giggle or to give me a social smile. So by the 3 month of age, the child learns to give back the smile which you have given to the child after stimulation. What happens in the screen time, there nobody is asking for that social smile to reciprocate, and that is what happens in a lot of our autism children. Because no social smile, nothing is asked from a screen, and because of that, all those who are genetically preponed, once they are shown a lot of screen time, their everything tips down towards autism like features. And that is why we prohibit all these screen time, and we want more interactions with the children, more physical interactions with the children. Also, make sure that once the child starts mouthing, we give a lot of rattles. Make sure the quality of those rattles are good. Those are not cheap plastic products, because then they have a lot of chemicals there, and which the child takes in and just it goes into the body. So a lot of studies states that by the time the child reaches a year of age, 1 year of age, he or she has got so much of plastic in the body, which is not, we still don't know how much side effect that is causing. But definitely it's not, it's harmful to the body. So make sure when the child goes in for mouthing for the object, don't get the cheap plastic objects. Try to get, now there are a lot of products which are available, made of wood, made of neem wood and other stuff. Okay. And so the take home message is, again, no screen times, a lot of time spent with the child. And I've told you various ways how to get the connectivity back. And I think if you will have, for the first 3 to 4 months, if these things are done, the child will definitely will have more better brain architecture as compared to the child who has been just left there and done nothing with the child. Okay. So by that, we'll go to the questions if there are any, and see if you could sort out. Uh, uh, so Anamika Kian, borderline intellectual capacity with mild level of autism diagnosis हुआ तो क्या बच्चा normal हो सकता है? Okay, so that's low now. What age have you diagnosed? अनामिका, आपके बच्चे का डायग्नोसिस कौन सी एज पे हुआ है? अगर डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एज, अगर ऑफ डेवलपमेंट काफी लेट, बहुत लेट अगर हुआ है, पता चला है, तो जो है जैसे जैसे एज बीतती जाती है तो जो है चांसेस थोड़े कम होते जाते हैं. बिकॉज अर्ली स्टेजेस में हम बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं, हम बहुत सारे चेंजेस ला सकते हैं, बट एज द चाइल्ड गोज ओल्डर एंड ओल्डर, तो फिर चेंजेस उतने ज्यादा अच्छे नहीं आते हैं. बट डेफिनेटली प्लास्टिसिटी ऑफ द ब्रेन इज द टर्म. प्लास्टिसिटी का मतलब है कि ब्रेन में जो है बहुत सारे चेंजेस लाए जा सकते हैं, बट ये है कि हाँ, अगर जल्दी उम्र में पता चलता है तो ज्यादा ज्यादा ला सकते हैं, लेट उम्र में पता चलता है तो एफर्ट ज्यादा लगता है, बट लाया तो कुछ भी जा सकता है. ओके, ओके. आई थिंक ये सारे आज के क्वेश्चंस जो हैं वो मेरे उस पे हैं, नॉट रिलेटेड टू दिस टॉपिक. I have new from YouTube. Kindly advise. I think I'll take up those questions जो कि जो हैं मेरे आज के presentation से related हैं, because that is what is going to make sense. ये सारी बड़े बच्चे हैं शायद. सो ये सारी हम बातें तब करेंगे जब जो है हम बात करेंगे इनसे रिलेटेड. ओके, सो अपने बहुत सारे मैं देख रही हूँ हैं क्वेश्चंस, बट बहुत सारे अपने ऐसे वीडियोस हैं जो इन सारी चीजों का जवाब दे देंगे. प्लीज हम उन सारे वीडियोस को चेक करेंगे. और जो है मेरे ख्याल से आज के लिए, आज के कंटेक्स्ट में जो है मुझे कोई भी क्वेश्चन नहीं दिख रहा है ऐसा जो कि आज के कंटेक्स्ट का हो. सो आज का सेशन हम यहीं पे खत्म करते हैं, क्योंकि दीज आर नॉट रिलेटेड टू व्हाट माय टॉपिक फॉर टुडे इज. एंड ये सारे क्वेश्चंस जो मैं देख रही हूँ, ये सारे पिंक्यांश, दीपक, ये सारे आपको आंसर्स मेरे पुराने वीडियोस में डेफिनेटली मिल जाएंगे. ओके, सो प्लीज गो एंड गेट दिट. एंड आज के लिए जो है हम अपना सेशन यहीं पे खत्म करते हैं. And thank you so much for your time. And please just try to make our children brighter, brighter and brighter. क्योंकि जो है एफर्ट्स कभी भी बेकार नहीं जाते हैं, प्लीज. ओके, तो जो है जितने एफर्ट करेंगे उतना रिजल्ट मिलेगा ही मिलेगा. ओके, थैंक यू सो मच. थैंक यू ऑल. हैव अ गुड नाइट एंड definitely a better future for our children. Thank you.